Hello, everybody. I appreciate your patience with me as I do another YouTube class. Trust me, I'd rather be well enough to be there with you, but unfortunately, that's not the situation. As we go through, I'm going to remind you, hopefully, and if I forget, I'm reminding you now, pause me. It is so important that you process the information and that you do not wait for me to give you the answer. And I'm probably going to go through pretty quickly to get this into one settings, so you may need to hit the pause button so you can process the answer. All right, let's start with la tarea. La tarea 5-1 en la página 129. Número 1, el brazo. 2, el pelo. 3, el músculo. 4, los dedos. 5, el estómago. 6, los codos. 7, los dientes. 8, la espalda. And I think it also asks you to explain which one did not belong and why. So whatever you put there, as long as your logic was good, then that's the reason that it did not belong. 5-2, los deportes y los pasatiempos, sports and pastimes. So what sports and pastimes do you associate with the following parts of your body? And I've given you some, you may have others. So las piernas y los pies, correr, caminar, dar un paseo, bailar, jugar al fútbol, practicar el ciclismo. Número 2, levantar pesas. These are the ones you associate with los brazos and las manos. Levantar pesas, nadar, pescar, jugar al tenis y otros deportes. Número 3, las manos y los dedos, tocar la guitarra. 4, los ojos. Sacar fotos, mirar la tele, visitar un museo. 5, la cabeza y los pies, jugar al fútbol. And if you're thinking American football, you could say jugar al fútbol americano, and because football alone means soccer. Let's go back to the introduction on page 137, 127. 127. I have the wrong page number up there, 127. And what you're going to be doing here is looking at what we're going to be learning. Communication goals, las metas de comunicación, para identificar partes del cuerpo y describir condiciones de salud. Van a describir actividades diarias. Van a expresar lo que tú y otros acaban de hacer. 4, van a describir características y condiciones de personas y cosas, estructuras, pronombres reflexivos y el tiempo presente de los verbos reflexivos. El verbo ser versus estar, and demonstrative adjectives and pronouns. So I'm going to ask you, and I'm sorry, I know the phone is ringing, but I'm trying to ignore it. So let's go ahead to vocabulario 1. And I know you've already worked a little bit with this. We're going to do a little game that I'm sure you're familiar with in English. Simón dice, Simon says, toca el, or toca la, touch the, so like touch your head, touch your nose. And then you're going to respond, and this is just to interact with the vocabulary a little bit. With whenever you touch, you're going to say the word again, because as you know, when it comes test time, you have to know all this vocabulary, and the more that you interact with it, the better you're going to be. So here we go. Simón dice, toca la cabeza. So you should have touched your head and said la cabeza. Simón dice, toca el estómago. So you should have responded by touching your stomach and said el estómago. 3, toca los ojos. Your eyes. Toca la nariz. Your nose. Toca la rodilla. Let me say that again. Toca la rodilla. Touch your knee. Toca el codo. Your elbow. Toca la pierna. Touch your leg. Toca los dientes. your teeth. Okay, so you may practice this a little bit more with someone else and get someone to practice with, but again, the idea is interacting with vocabulary. Okay, let's look at 5-5, some additional practice, 5-5. And so what I'm going to give you here is what do you associate with these activities. So the example is, se asocian con la boca y con la actividad de comer. They're associated with the mouth and the activity of eating. And the answer would be los dientes, or son los dientes. All right, so let's try this one. Se asocian con la actividad de leer. Hopefully you responded los ojos or las manos. Okay, muy bien. Se asocia con la actividad de respirar. Hopefully you responded la nariz, la boca. Se asocian con la actividad de escribir. Los dedos, las manos, los brazos. Se asocian con la actividad de correr. Las piernas, los pies. Se asocian con la actividad de escuchar. Los oídos. And if you said las orejas really means the outer part of your ear. Los oídos is like the inner part, the part that you actually hear with. So in Spanish, there's 2 words for your ears. Se asocian con la actividad de comer. Hopefully you said los dientes. Okay, let's go on to 5-6. And you're going to answer these. So I'm going to be asking the question. Please pause me again. Formulate an answer. Process the information. So for example, I will say to you something like this. ¿Tienes la nariz grande o pequeña? Do you have a big nose or a small nose? And answer truthfully. You're there by yourself, and so nobody knows but you. And this person said, tengo la nariz grande. I have a big nose. Okay, so the first one is, ¿de qué color tienes el pelo? Flip the sentence to answer it. Tengo el pelo negro. Tengo el pelo rubio. Tengo el pelo rojo. Okay, so you could have responded any of those ways. Notice that they all agree in number and gender. Número 2, ¿de qué color tienes los ojos? So you want to say, I have green eyes, blue eyes, whatever you have. Tengo los ojos verdes. Notice it is verdes to agree with ojos. Número 3, ¿tienes las orejas grandes o pequeñas? And just by the way, normal means normal. So answer truthfully. Tengo las orejas grandes. Or you could have said, tengo las orejas normales. ¿Usas las manos para hablar? Do you use your hands to talk? Answer truthfully. Sí, uso las manos para hablar. Yes, I use my hands to talk. Cuando haces ejercicio, ¿qué parte del cuerpo usas más? When you do exercise, what part of your body do you use the most? Answer truthfully. Cuando hago ejercicio, uso las piernas. In my case, I'm a runner, so I use my legs. When I do exercise, I use my legs. And then finally, ¿por qué es malo el tabaco? Why is tobacco bad? And I want you to say tobacco is bad for your lungs. El tabaco es malo para los pulmones. And let me go ahead and point something out to you that's really, really important. Notice that this does not say my hair, my eyes, my ears. It says the hair, the ears, the hands. That's the way you say it in Spanish, but we translated it as I use my hands to talk. In Spanish is I use the hands to talk. Well, obviously you don't use anybody else's hands but yours. When you're doing exercise, you don't use anybody else's legs but yours. So the adjective, the possessive adjective is implied, but in Spanish you use el, la, los, and las. Okay, let's move on. And if you will look with me, please. on page 132, 132. I want to try to connect this to something that hopefully you already know. And if you will remember the verb gustar, and we had to think about this backward. So we had to think about, it is pleasing to me. Me gusta. It is pleasing to you. Te gusta. It is pleasing to him. Le gusta. It is pleasing to us. Nos gusta. And let me point out, I like, it's pleasing to me. Notice the difference between I and me. This is the same thing here in Spanish. Te gusta. You like it, it's pleasing to you. That one really doesn't change in English, but it does in Spanish. Le gusta. He likes, it is pleasing to him. Notice the difference. So for the most part with these, you already know the first four. The only one that changes is le and les, and it changes to se. Okay? So let's move to the next part, which is the actual conjugation of the verb. So if I have the verb levantarse, and notice it has an se on the end of it, meaning that it's a reflexive verb. I get myself up. And what happens with the reflexive verbs that you'll see there in the book is that the doer and the recipient are the same person. So I get up. Who are you getting up? Well, you're getting yourself up. Unless you get your brother up, and then you would clarify and say that. I take a bath. Well, who are you giving a bath to? You're giving a bath to yourself. So the subject or the doer and the recipient of the action is the same person. We usually in English either say himself, herself, or we imply that. So the verb we're going to be working right here is levantarse, to get up. So going through the chart, me levanto, I get myself up. The yo is optional. Probably, more than likely, you wouldn't hear it, but it's possible to hear it. Te levantas. Se levanta. He gets himself up. She gets herself up. Usted se levanta. You get yourself up. Nos levantamos. We get ourselves up. Os levantáis. Se levantan. And I have underlined and made red the important parts to notice so that you can see that me and nos are the same. Te and os are the same. And then from the verb gustar, le and les changes to se. And both of them are the same. So you probably think, well, how do you know the difference? The context. You will tell who you're talking about, and then it's okay to say se levantan. So if you're talking about your grandparents and you say mis abuelos viven en Chicago, my grandparents live in Chicago, then your next sentence is se levantan a las 8, they get up at 8 o'clock. Well, you know who you're talking about. So that's the way that works. Let me point out to you that the verbs in the reflexive are not irregular unless they're normally irregular, which basically means is if an AR verb, ER verb, or an IR verb, it stays the same. And all of you hopefully already know how to conjugate verbs. If you don't, you got some work to do. All right, so let's move on. So looking on page 133, and I've just summarized for you a little bit what this is. The doer, the subject of the verb, and the recipient of the verb are one and the same. We a lot of times can either use himself, herself, or myself, or themselves, or you can imply it. So look at the difference. I bathe myself. That one is a natural birth. I'm not going to bathe anybody else, and nobody with dirty minds. You may. Okay. I shave myself. Me afeito. I comb myself. I comb my hair. Typically, I'm not going to comb anybody else's hair. Me peino. I get myself up. Me levanto. Now, if you are getting your child up, or you're combing your child's hair, or you're bathing your child, then it is not reflexive because the subject and the recipient are two different people. Then it's just a normal verb. So look at how that works with reflexive versus non-reflexive. I bathe myself. Me baño. I bathe the dog. In other words, I give the dog a bath. Baño el perro. Okay, see the difference. Me baño, baño el perro. And something I want to point out, there is a common error that a lot of students make is when I introduce reflexive verbs, all verbs in Spanish become reflexive from this point on. That is not the situation. They're only reflexive if they end in SE or they're logically refer the action back to themselves. So look on page 133 at some of those verbs. Acostarse, afeitarse, bañarse, cepillarse los dientes, cuidarse, despertarse, dormirse, ducharse, lavarse, levantarse, maquillarse, peinarse, pintarse, ponerse la ropa, quitarse la ropa, secarse la ropa, vestirse la ropa. Vestirse. And I don't know, I may have said secarse la ropa, secarse el cuerpo. If I said la ropa, it should have been el cuerpo. Got into la ropa and I continue with that. But logically here, you can see that the action refers back to the subject, one and the same. That's really, really important. Okay? Look at the examples in the first column. Sara se va a levantar. Sara is going to get up. Sara va a levantarse pronto. She's going to get up soon. Okay? Sara se está levantando. She's getting up. Sara está levantándose ahora. She's getting up now. Okay? When a reflexive verb is attached to a present participle, an accent mark is added to maintain the correct tense. So it's pronounced, as you see it here in the book, is levantándose. If you didn't have an accent, it would be pronounced levantándose, and that is not correct. The point of this part is you have a choice of what to do with the me, te, nos, se, and all of that. When it's a complicated verb, you can put it before the main verb, se va a levantar, or va a levantarse. You can put it at the end, and I'll give you some more on those in just a second. Se está levantando. She's getting up now. Está levantándose. Notice the se switches places. Both are perfectly correct. So let's look at 511. And I'm going to ask you again to pause me. I'm not going to pause, but you pause me. So we're going to tell what Tomás is doing. So Tomás se despierta a las 6. Tomás is getting up at 6 o'clock. Then you're going to tell what you do. Me despierto a las 8. I get up at 8 o'clock. See the difference. Tomás se despierta. Stem change verb, a las 6. Me despierto a las 8. I get up at 8 o'clock. So the first one, I want you to say Tomás. First, Tomás takes a bath. And then tell what you do. Primero, Tomás se baña. Primero, me cepillo los dientes. So I personally brush my teeth when I get up. So Tomás takes a bath. First, I brush my teeth. Okay, notice the difference. I do not say yo in there. It's not necessary. I can say it if I want to. Luego, number 2, later, Tomás combs his hair, and then tell what you do later or next. Luego, Tomás se peina. Luego, me ducho. So in my particular situation, I take a shower. Okay. Número 3. Afterwards, or después, Tomás brushes his teeth, and then tell what you personally do next. Después, él se cepilla los dientes. Después, me peino. So he brushes his teeth. I comb my hair. Notice that I switch from Tomás to él. And guess what? I don't even have to put él in there because we know at this point we're talking about Tomás. I could simply say, después se cepilla los dientes, because we know who we're talking about. And then finally, Tomás gets dressed. Say what you do at the end. Finalmente, Tomás se viste. Finalmente, yo me visto también. I also get dressed. Okay. I'm going to leave you 5.9 and 5.10 for homework, but we'll come back to that in just a second to give you some practice with those. We're going to move on, and I want to remind you, I'm going to encourage you actually to flip back and forth because these two concepts do go hand in hand just a little bit. Okay, looking at estructura y uso 2, 134. We're starting to get into the past tense in Spanish. And one easy way of using the past tense is by telling something that you just finished doing. So notice this, and it should look familiar. Acabo de comer. I just finished eating. Acabo de hablar. I just finished talking. Acabo de escribir. I just finished writing. Acabas de comer. You just finished eating. Acabas de hablar. You just finished talking. Acabas de escribir. You just finished writing. Él acaba de comer. He just finished talking. Él acaba de hablar. He just finished talking. Sorry, the first one was eating, the second was talking. Acaba de escribir. He just finished writing. You can use any verb. Notice, acabar is conjugated according to the subject. The day does not change. And then whatever it is that you finish doing, comer, hablar, escribir, bailar, tomar agua, whatever it is, you leave that in the infinitive form. So you've got the others. Nosotros acabamos de. Vosotros acabáis de. Ellos se acaban, ellos acaban de. Okay, those are with normal verbs. Notice that comer, hablar, and escribir are not. They are not reflexive verbs. The second one in each box is a reflexive verb. So flip back, please, on page 133. Look at the examples on 133 of where you can put the pronoun. And I'm going to show you two places just like the book showed you. Bañarse, to take a bath, is a reflexive verb. So, me acabo de bañar. I just took a bath. I just gave myself a bath. Acabo de bañarme. Notice the me can go either of two places, both perfectly correct. Te acabas de bañar. Acabas de bañarte. Either of two places, perfectly correct. Se acaba de bañar. Acaba de bañarse. Okay? Notice what happens. Whatever you finish doing stays in the infinitive. De doesn't change. Acabas is conjugated, and the te can go either one place, either two places. Nos acabamos de bañar or acabamos de bañarnos. Os acabáis de bañar or acabáis de bañaros. Se acaban de bañar or acaban de bañarse. All right. Don't panic on this one. We're going to have plenty of practice. I'm going to give you a little practice for homework on those, and then we're going to come back in class and we're going to do much more with it. One of my fears is not being present to ask questions is that you won't get it, but hopefully this gives you enough at least to try and at least to practice with, and I promise we'll come back to it in class on Thursday night. So let's look at our homework. Okay, you're going to do 5-9, and basically you're going to tell what these people are doing. So, for example, levantarse, to wake up. On Sundays, Juan Carlos and Sara wake up at 8. Tomás, their son, wake up at 9. And then you tell what time you wake up. Make sure you include the pronoun in there. Okay? The next one, que mujer más ocupada. What a busy woman. To understand Sara's daily routine, complete the following descriptions conjugating the verb in parentheses. So, what days I wake up at 7. First, I go to the bathroom, then I shower for 10 minutes. So you're going to fill in the blank, and I'll give you a hint on these. All of them are in the yo form because Sara is giving you the information. All right, so look at 5:13. Mamá acabo de hacerlo. Mom, I just did it. So Mama's giving out orders. And so you're either going to tell her that you just did it or the person that she's referring to just did it. So let me give you the example, the modelo. It says, ¿Por qué no te bañas? Why don't you take a bath? And the response is, me acabo de bañar. I just took a bath. Or you could say, acabo de bañarme. I just took a bath. They both mean the same. Notice the different placement of me. Number 1, why don't you and your sister, brush your teeth after lunch? And so what you want to say is, my sister and I just brushed our teeth. Remember, acabar, conjugated correctly, the word de, and then whatever you did, and make sure you get the placement of the pronoun correct. Number 2, why don't they get dressed for the party, for their friend's party? And so what you want to say is, they just got dressed for their friend's party. Why doesn't your dad shave? You want to say, my dad just shaved. Why don't you take a nap? I just took a nap. Why don't your best friend comb her hair? She just combed her hair. So those are the answers that you're going to give him. And then 5:14, adivina lo que acaba de hacer esa gente. Guess what these people just did. So look at the modelo. Sara sale del baño. Sara leaves the bathroom. Tiene el cabello mojado. She has wet hair. So you're going to write, Sara acaba de bañarse. Sara just took a bath. Make sense? Number 1, Tomás se levanta de la cama. Tomás just got up out of the bed. So what you want to say is, Tomás just woke up. Number 2, Sarita y Tomás se levantan de la mesa. Son las 8 de la mañana. They just got up from the table. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. So pretty obvious. They just had breakfast. So you want to say, Sarita and Tomás just had breakfast. So I'll leave the other ones to you. I'd also like you to do viajemos, and you'll obviously find that in Georgia View, and then we do have the oral test on Thursday. I hope this is helpful, and again, rest assured we'll continue to practice these concepts in class. Have a good evening.